Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. I'm Scott Whitwam, and today our topic is switching from short-term rentals to co-living.
Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast with Scott Whitwam, your blueprint to financial abundance. Settle in as we explore the mindset and methods for wealth building through real estate.
Welcome back. I'm Scott Whitwam. Thank you for joining us on this podcast of switching from short-term rentals to co-living. I'm really excited about today's show. You know, in 2019, there was a real change in the market. People were trying to dive into short-term rentals. I was getting the calls all the time. Investors were abuzz with it. But there's been some real changes and some transitions in that space. And I thought, what a better way to reach out and have it explained than to reach out to somebody who is in this space, who knows this, that in my world, I consider them, stars in the short term and in the flipping space. And so I'm so excited to have with me Brian and Gina Kingdeski with me today. Brian and Gina, welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
I'm so glad to have you here. And I think probably the best thing or the first thing we should start with is experience. So, Gina, why don't I start with you? Why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience in real estate?
Sure. So I started in the new home industry. I started with America's largest builder, which is D.R. Horton. And it's all about numbers there. So we were doing anywhere from 50 to 75 transactions a year. After a long time there, Brian and I met, and I decided to leave corporate America and really start focusing on our portfolio and building our rental portfolio. So I left corporate America, and we jumped full into building our rental portfolio, and we've been full stream ahead now.
That's pretty awesome. And Brian, you've got a different story. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your history in real estate?
Well, I started 25 years ago, and I owned a bunch of Subway restaurants, and I was at a marketing conference, and they had a guest speaker by the name of Ron LeGrand, and he's an old time, lease to own and options, and he had all these courses. And so I spent $1,500 on a credit card, bought his course, and I was probably one of the few that actually followed the course. And so that's how I got into it. So, 25 years later, we've done, over 2,300 flips. And, with her experience in the builder, we've done well over 3,000 transactions in real estate. So there's just not much that we haven't gone through, good and bad. And so that's, given us the experience to, continue and thrive in this crazy market.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And a lot of people, think about this, 25 years ago would have stepped up and spent $1,500, which is probably, $5,000 or better today.
Easily.
But what you learned, you took advantage of knowledge, what you learned, and most people, that's what keeps them away is their unwillingness to take that step. They're like, well, I'll do it if it's free. I'll do it if it's $50. But, free and $50 gets you free and $50 worth of results. But you said, hey, I want to do this. And then you followed through.
Yeah, I got the course and actually started doing lease to own. So, I would, try to tie up a house and I'd put my lease to own signs out, get the tenant in there. And, it was really hard. And so did that for a short while. And then, finally went to an investor that I knew and said, hey, I want to do a flip, and borrowed money. And, that guy that I borrowed money from, he's still with me today. So
that's awesome. Long-term relationship.
Started with a little, $90,000 deal. And now he's got, over 2.5 with me that we've made him throughout these years.
Throughout the years. That
pretty exciting awesome story for him and for us as well.
So. Well, what transitioned you guys into the short-term rental space?
Sure. So I believe it was, we're doing all these fix and flips and you get excited about that. But we really wanted to start holding on to some of the properties. Number one, for tax benefits. I mean, it's always good to hold those on. But then we also wanted to start creating a space for travelers where they can have an experience, not just a place to come in and lay their head down. We wanted something different. So we really started focusing as we were purchasing our houses. I think we bought how many?
Yeah, we went to an Avengers conference and came back and was like, we got to stop this.
Yeah.
This transactional stuff, because we were just paying, taxes out the yin yang, And so then came back from the conference, and then we bought about 30 of them within a 45-day period, these big, massive homes that we were going to transition into vacation rentals.
Yeah, and really focusing on the experience rather than just a regular home. So we put ideas out there. We would go into a house and kind of make a theme for the house. We had a rock and roll theme house. It was super cool. But our favorite one, I would have to say, would be our Jack and Cheyenne house. It was a house in Chandler on, an acre and a half. Yeah. And we made it into our animal experience house.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here we are making this big, huge house, slept 30 people. And we decided, okay, well, let's go buy some alpacas. So we got a hold of it. So we got a hold of an alpaca guy to an undisclosed location. He won't tell you where he lives. And we bought 2 alpacas. We had horses. We had goats. We had
a baby horse born on our property. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we had chickens and ducks. So we really wanted to create those memories for people. So families come in like, hey, I'm not just going to I'm going to live on a farm basically for a weekend. And
it was really nice though.
It was
you think a farm, it had putting green and built a brand new pool and whole kids play area. Like it was beautiful.
It's almost an adventure hotel if I could sleep 30.
For sure. Yeah. We had a whole back casita that was like the big bunk room with all these things. So we really just started putting our heart and soul into providing these experiences for guests. And we got to the point where we had 11 active Airbnbs that we were running, and we self-managed all of them. So there was a lot of time that was put into that and everything. So,
well, I know you guys are pretty passionate about, what you do. I mean, just passionate for life. I mean, and so, obviously you guys experienced the change in 2020 when COVID hit and stuff, but what really has changed and transitioned in the short-term rental arena that would make you start looking in other avenues?
Yeah. So a couple years ago, obviously, when we had Super Bowl here, as well as Waste Management open, everybody who didn't have a short-term rental decided, hey, I'm going to get a short-term rental and maximize some money off of this. And so there was an oversaturation. We got about, in Arizona, there were over 60,000 short-term rentals on the market at one time. So for somebody who's just doing it to cash flow a little bit of money, it's nice for them. But somebody who's putting their business behind it, it really started to hurt us. So come summer months, we were really struggling with high mortgage payments and low bookings. Because if you don't have a pool in a short-term rental in the summer months, I mean, you're definitely struggling. So
we need a heater in the winter.
Yes, and you need a heater in the winter.
Absolutely have to have a pool heater.
So we had to look elsewhere. We had to try and figure out a solution.
Yeah. What kind of pressure has the short-term rental market experienced with all of the jurisdictions changing their rules and regulations? How has that affected?
Yeah, there was a lot. Scottsdale was, one of the bigger ones. So we just, as we kind of moved from Scottsdale, we started buying them in Mesa and different Tempe and stuff like that. And those were a lot better, but it just got oversaturated. And then when the market changed and the rates started going up, that's when everything kind of started changing for us, because we were doing, not only were we doing short-term rentals, and we were also doing 60 to 65 flips at a time.
Right.
So just kind of wrap your head around the scale that was. And then rates shot up, market, nothing would sell. And so, that was one of the things that kind of just transitioned, and God had something else for us. And so, which, we'll get into in a little bit on that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the transition, because obviously people were trying to get out of the conventional rentals, moving to short term to maximize profits. Yep. And then we've got massive competition, 60,000 competing properties out there. And they got jurisdictional changes. You got HOAs who are changing all their rules to where you can't rent anything for less than 30 days and all the rest of this. So what was your next transition into then with regards to trying to replace your short-term rental space?
So we actually got a call from a colleague, actually Brandon Simmons.
Oh, okay.
Who knew that we were doing the short-term rentals and was kind of seeing the struggles that were going on. And he said, hey, I think you need to talk to this guy. His name is Ellis. He works for Pad Split, and he has to do with co-living. And so Brian and I, when we first heard about it, we were like, co-living, what is this?
Yeah,
this
like
is
who
just
would want to do that?
weird. We couldn't imagine it. And they're like, oh, it's like you're going to have a house. There's going to be like 8 to 10 different tenants, and they're all going to live together. Well, I could not wrap my brain around this at all. I was thinking of Real World from
Right.
back in the 80s, and everybody like cameras on and all this drama.
Oh.
But we ended up meeting with Ellis from Pad Split, and as we started to dive into it, I was able to separate my own expectations of how I would feel comfortable to living, and saying, okay, there's a need for this. Whereas short-term rentals really focus on the traveler and having fun. But right now, affordable housing is a huge crisis for everybody. And so I was able to wrap my brain around it really quickly. Brian was super surprised I wrapped my brain around it. And we said, okay, let's try it. So
Yeah, the need was there because it was the summertime. Well, we met him in like May, so summer was approaching, and our short-term rentals that we had in Scottsdale, and these were, really, really nice homes, didn't have pools. And so, we just saw our bookings kind of go down in the summertime. And so we're left with, we had, when the market had originally changed, we had 3 houses that we had adjustable mortgages on. And so the payments were a little higher. And so we're like, okay, this is crazy. Why don't we take a look at possibly taking one of our Scottsdale vacation rentals and turning it into co-living? So we met Ellis over there, and we kind of looked at the house. We're like, okay, we could probably get six bedrooms. It was a 4, 2.5. So we can probably make it 6. So basically you're adding a bedroom in the front. We converted the 1-car garage into a bedroom, and then the master bedroom, you just basically build a little hallway down to go to the bathroom, because it has to be a 4-to-1 ratio bedroom in the bathroom. So you have to have access to make it a community bathroom. So, we're like, okay, let's do it. And so I took one of my guys that's been with us forever, and it took him like 7 to 10 days to do the complete remodel.
Well, that's not very bad.
Yeah, it was just putting up 2 walls in the living room. Yeah, the garage was already there, so we're putting a wall in front of the door, and then the hallway, and then you're just putting ceiling fans in there. And it was
taking some beds apart, bunk beds apart, and putting them in other rooms and stuff. And
the house was already fully furnished. It was really nice. So.
So
we decided to do it. We did it, and we went live on Pad Split. And there was this big debate because Pad Split's more, there's a house that fits a Pad Split, and these were really, really nice. So, we were going back and forth of what we're going to charge a week. Typically it's like $200 a week now. And so, but these houses were like really, really nice, decked out TVs in every bedroom, hot tub, putting greens in the backyard. They were very nice. So we went live on Pad Split, and we did the higher rates, and we ended up filling that first house in 5 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we broke a company record. We're like, okay, this is our mortgage is covered now,
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
this may work.
yeah, you're not making the big swings and stuff like that, but you're stabilized, and that's what we were going for and with these houses. And so we did it again to the second house in Scottsdale. That filled up in 3 days, and then we did it one more time and did it in 5 days again. So,
Well, I know this, that when you guys contacted me about co-living, the first thing ran through my head is nobody's going to want to live with somebody else, because I was thinking that everybody's like me.
yeah.
exactly. You have to take yourself out of the equation.
Yeah. And so when I came and you guys did that seminar presentation, and Ellis was there, and you were explaining the process, and it was like, no, you got to take yourself out of this thing. And it was like, and then when you start looking at it, you look at it at a 1-bedroom, apartment at $1,400 a month just in Phoenix.
That's a studio.
I'm not talking about Scottsdale.
That's not a 1-bed. That's just a studio.
Yeah.
But
I'm talking, not in the higher end areas where, and you guys were saying, well, yeah, but in these scenarios that, in between $800 and $1,100 a month per room, and people are now saving $500, $600, $700 a month on rent by co-living. And then we talked about the the class of people as far as their age and this stuff, and I was entirely shocked.
Blown away.
Share a little bit about what you find as far as a demographic for a co-living home.
Yeah. So originally, when we had found out about it, I went back to that whole real world. I was thinking these young 20-year-olds or college kids. And we were very surprised that our average age is anywhere from 45 to 65 years old.
Wow.
We have somebody that's been in one of our houses. She's 75. She might be 76 now for 10 months.
Right.
And so it's really people that have very, could have fixed incomes or are making anywhere from that $35,000 to $50,000 a year. And this gives them a chance to have a safe, clean home that they're proud of, and they have the ability to build their credit as well as potentially save up money so they can get out on their own. And we've seen that be successful for a lot
and
of members.
There's no additional expenses. We pay for the Wi-Fi, the utilities, internet, everything. So their room payment that's all they pay.
And they're renting a room and sharing a kitchen space and refrigerator and laundry and that kind of stuff. But they're paying for that, and then you guys manage the rest. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, but we're not going to have time on this episode. So if we could, let's do another episode and let's talk specifically about co-living and some of those other aspects, because I think this is a very interesting new space for investors.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of opportunity.
And there's a need. I haven't talked to Ellis in a little bit, so I don't know how many doors there are now, but the last I heard there was over 700 doors. But if you break it down, it's the need is for someone who makes 35 to 45,000 a year. So if you do the math, we have about 5 million people here in Maricopa County. Those amount of people that need it is anywhere from 15 to 25,000, and we're at 700 doors.
Yeah, I was going to say 700 is just a big apartment complex.
Yeah, right. And those are popping up everywhere. Every corner you look, there's another apartment complex.
They're building like crazy.
So the need is there. Right now, Pat Split's working on getting the word out and letting people know what it is. But we hover right around 100% occupancy, and it's. The only thing, obviously there's good and bad. The only thing you can talk about a little bit of some of the, you get drama in the house sometimes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that when we come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've been watching the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. Thank you for joining this episode of making the switch from short-term rentals to co-living. Be sure to watch the Whitwam Real Estate Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can catch us on YouTube. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love to have your feedback and comments. In fact, we can use some of those feedback and comments to predict which shows we may create in the future. So be sure to join us on the next episode of the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast, where we're wealth building through real estate.